what the fuck are the editors doing is basically a constant segment.
Well, the editors are the producers, because that's the editors do a lot of what the producers tell them to.
Oh, that's fair.
Welcome to the Survivor Turning Back Time podcast, the Survivor podcast that asks the question, do you really need water to survive? I am your host, Stephen Levine, with my co-host, Jared Sheldon. Jared, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Steven.
And we also have a special guest from many things, but most importantly from the Unranked podcast, video producer, great human, Christian Humes.
I am very excited to be here. My fiance, I almost called her my partner because I got tired of calling her my girlfriend after so long. My fiance now has had enough of me watching Survivor nonstop these last few weeks. So I guess I'll just do, I don't know, do you typically do a little guest intro here? How's this work?
Absolutely. Give us a rundown. Tell us about you.
All right. Well, I'm no longer at G4, but I used to be a producer for G4 TV. One of the shows I produced was Name Your Price, which was a game show. It was sort of like 70s Price is Right for dirtbags is kind of how I like to think about it, but in like a good way, in like a good way, because it was kind of like, hey, how much is this price of this item? Except it would be taxidermied squirrel dressed up like a cowboy. It wasn't Colgate. It was weird, disgusting. It was, how long is it going to take this person to dig through the garbage and find a chicken bone that's been eaten? And everyone guesses the amount of time. It was very gross and weird and funny. But producing those shows, I spent a lot of time literally just making games for them. And I know Steve, because we've had you on the Unranked podcast, which is a podcast that I produce and host. Part of that show, literally from the outset, was it's 50% video games, 50% game show. Now it's like 20% game show, just because it's gotten bloated over the years. But yeah, I've come up with a lot of games. And I think my favorite thing about Survivor is, the challenge aspect of it. And it's going to be very interesting to talk about this episode today, because basically the last few weeks, since I have had a lot of free time, I've watched seasons 20 through 37 of Survivor. I've watched 17 seasons of Survivor in the last 3 weeks so far. And it's a very different show today than when it was, what is this, 18 years ago, 19? How long ago is this now?
October of 2001.
Okay, wow. Okay, so 20 years ago is when this came out. 22 or 21-ish, I guess, yeah, is how long it is. So very different show. It's a very, very different show. The only thing that's basically the same is Jeff Probst.
Well, even Jeff isn't the same. I'm speaking, I've only seen David and Goliath, because that was the one on Netflix, and you go, ooh, let me watch Survivor again. And then
that one I just watched was great.
Yeah, it's a great season. 41, 42, and then part of 43, because it's still coming out. But Jeff is so different in seasons 1 and 2, and now the first episode of season 3. He's much less confident and much less plastic than he is.
Yeah, sure. He's still really thoughtful with the kind of questions he asks, except now he comes from it as a master of Survivor and as a real producer of the show. He's clearly very involved in the construction of the show and the challenges and the twists. He's not just there as a host like a lot of these executive producers are. And that comes from his journalism background, I believe. That's why he's so good at asking the right questions. However, I think the confidence, yes, but that's more just a function of his experience. But otherwise, he's still even in the early seasons, very sharp with everything that's happening currently in the show, and he knows how to at Tribal Council ask the right questions to make people blow up their own games, just for the entertainment of the show.
We've talked actually there's a couple of moments in season 1 and season 2 that Jeff has asked questions that are a little too on the nose, where he's just is outing somebody in front of absolutely everyone.
Jeff, you know too much here. Maybe let's calm this down.
But we love those moments.
Part of that, though, is so those tribal councils go so much longer than what are on TV. I mean, it's kind of like Shark Tank. Shark Tank, you watch it and it's like 10 minutes, those pitches, but the actual pitches, they're in there for over an hour usually. These tribals have gone for several hours before, contestants will tell you, but we watch it and it's like 8 minutes long. So sometimes we see those on the nose questions. We're like, oh, you gave it away, but we could have been missing the 40 minutes prior where someone says something that led him to asking that question. They just cut right to it because it's like, we're going to give you the meat and the potatoes, and we're not giving you any of the appetizers. We're not worried about all the other things. We don't need the table setting. We're just going to get right to it. 'Cause they only have an hour to do the whole show.
Right. That's a fair point.
I feel like people would like, in theory, to watch the full tribal councils, but it would probably be really boring.
No, I don't think I'd want that.
Like you'd be hitting the fast forward button, I think. Most of the time.
From an intrigue standpoint, I would love to see an uncut Survivor, just one episode.
Yes.
I couldn't watch the whole thing but just to see the process and to see all the cameraman. Well, we did see one cameraman in this episode, and I will talk about that later. But man,
they do a very good job at hiding them. They do a good job. All right, well, I guess we're getting into it now, right?
Yeah, shall we get into the episode?
Do we have any emails we need to go over first?
Yes, we have a lot of emails, and they're lengthy emails, so I'm going to skip it for this one, and we're going to come back, because that's going to take us a good 15 minutes.
You guys do mail from the jump
today. If you want to send us emails, so at SurvivorTBT on Twitter, if it still exists, SurvivorTBT@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Reddit, u/SurvivorTBT.
Any criticism you can send to the unranked podcast at gmail.com if you don't like our show.
Yeah.
Don't harass them. Harass us.
It's email at unrankedpodcast.com.
There you go.
I just guessed.
But I will promote them. I will promote them later. Do go check out the Unranked podcast. Good bunch of people. But for now,
350th episode this week.
Whoa, you're right.
Which is close to how many episodes I feel like I've watched of Survivor in the last 3 weeks. I've watched almost a season a day for the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
So
that's insane.
That's a lot.
That's like COVID levels right there.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's insane.
Jared, where are we now?
Yes, this episode came out on October 11th of 2001. So previous season wrapped up April, May, I think, of 2001. A few things have happened in the world.
You don't say.
There's 2 buildings or more than 2 buildings in New York that are no longer there.
Yeah.
Whoopsie doodle.
Did this get pushed back from its original air date, or was this scheduled here?
I didn't dig that deep.
Okay, that's fine.
I tend to look at more things around the date because I don't want to accidentally get spoiled by looking up things about Survivor.
That's a good point you got there.
Yeah, I have the wiki open just because there was no way I was going to remember everyone's names. So I will say, like, there's no delays. Like, it could have started earlier, I guess, but they film these typically in the summer and then air them. At least now they do. They'll film 2 seasons in the summer and one's in the fall and then one's in the spring. I would assume that hasn't changed significantly, but I also don't know. I don't know what the weather was like in Africa, in our summer. So it's possible it was pushed back, but I would guess that it wasn't, right? It came out literally a month after September 11th. It was October 11th was the first episode. So yeah. I would think it wasn't. I would think they were probably like, people need TV. People need to like turn their brain off and watch stuff. So they put it out. It would be my guess.
I do think about that, the Rudy Giuliani bit where he goes on Saturday Night Live, back when he was an actual human.
Or at least cosplaying as one.
But when he was just married to his cousin, but not like trying to destroy democracy.
Yeah, just the fun bits where he goes on and he's like talking with the cast and he's joking, like, and the cast comes up behind him. I don't remember who it was, or no, it's the owner. Who is that?
Of Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, there's like
Lorne is what's his name? Is it Lorne?
Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
He comes up with Rudy Giuliani and he's like, "Can we be funny?" And Rudy Giuliani replies with, "Why start now?"
Ha!
Like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, how times have changed.
That's a good bit. So in the week, I just looked up a week before this episode came out, except for, obviously the big news. And it was still a pretty jam-packed week. So San Francisco Giant slugger Barry Bonds, guy you might have heard of, just spent this whole week breaking records. The most walk-offs in a season, tied the MLB home runs in a single season, and then beat it the next game. Another one, George W. Bush creates the Department of Homeland Security. That didn't exist in the first 2 seasons of Survivor.
Wow.
Yep. UK talent show Pop Idol debuts, which is the precursor to American Idol. So American Idol hadn't come out yet. I mentioned it in a previous season, and I was wrong. It does not come out until 2002.
Okay. Wow.
And during this week, the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan starts with an air assault and covert operations on the ground. And we're in Africa.
And then we stay there for a long-ass time.
Long time. Yep. Survivor did outlive the Afghanistan war. That's good.
Thank God.
The number 1 song on the charts was Fallen by Alicia Keys.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's a bop. And then some of the top box offices for that week are American Pie 2, The Musketeer, Shrek, The Fast and the Furious, and Jurassic Park 3.
We've entered Shrek meme world.
We were in the Shrek days.
Oh, man.
Shrek memes probably didn't start till like 2005, 2006, I feel like.
Memes didn't exist until like 2009.
I mean, memes have always existed, but not until 2009. Memes have been around for. I feel like memes became a thing on a mass scale by the time around MySpace hit.
That's fair.
Right? Like the first true, like real large social media was probably, because before that there were memes, but they were much smaller scale. And it was like if someone sent you a meme, it was kind of like, oh, look at this one, because you haven't seen that many memes. It was like, jokes would proliferate the internet. It was almost like email chains still back then too. People would send each other emails and stuff. But they, then they just became scams and psycho garbage, and they still look like they're from 2005, I think.
Which completely unrelated to Survivor, but they're intentionally made to be stupid, those scams, because they don't want to try to trick smart people. They want to trick the dumbest people possible. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to take advantage of people. But
Yeah.
I mean, people that make those things would probably do well on Survivor.
That's true.
Right?
I can't argue with it. So,
Some of the most manipulative people are the best players.
It brings up a good question. Jared and I are about the same age. You're a little bit older. Was MySpace like your first real foray into social media?
Yeah, I mean, I had like a GeoCities and stuff before that. I had like several of those. I graduated high school in 2005. So GeoCities was, I think Google actually bought it eventually. I could be wrong. Could have been Yahoo. It could have been a Yahoo joint. But it was, you could go and get a whatever.geocities.com, and it was like a built-in blogger. That's where like all of a lot of very big blogs either came from, like GeoCities, or GeoCities kind of emulated them. But there was a lot of people that started out like writing on the internet for like GeoCities, and then they went to like a smaller blog, but that goes way back. That's probably like the closest thing to anything like other than forums, right? Forums, I guess, would be the thing that predates MySpace and even GeoCities. Yeah, but with AIM, you're not really talking to strangers.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Right? That's the thing. So AIM is like text message on your computer before people had cell phones to text each other. That's what AIM was for. It was like, I'd get home from school or I hated being at school, but then but where you could talk to all your friends, and then I'd just go on my computer so I could talk to my friends on the computer. Like that's what AIM was. But it mostly ended up being like, hey, are you free? Do you want to hang out? And then you would go hang out. And then you'd be chatting up girls that you're interested in on AIM, or like that's what that was in the 2000s, because people didn't have text. And when you were, 15, you didn't have like a beeper. And as someone that graduated in 2005, I'd say kids in high school having cell phones started around the time I left. But it was mostly like older high schoolers like myself. And we're talking about like the Nokia phone, we're not talking we're still a couple years away from even the first most primitive iPhone at that point. So it's the internet has changed everything, including Survivor, I think, because of the discussions. You would never have there was no such thing or place for a podcast There wouldn't have been a post show where people talk about Survivor. Like none of those things would have happened. So that's one of the benefits you have for doing a show like this right now. Is like there are a lot of people that were fans of that show who are finding Survivor for the first time, and they can do this, which this didn't exist back then. You know, The Mole just came back on Netflix. That's a show that came out
so much.
It's incredible. It's an incredible show. It also, just like Survivor, came from the UK. UK is, I still think, the king of unscripted television, as much as like we have taken a lot of their shows, or actually they brought them over here is what actually happened. That's because our media empire is so much larger, but like the best ideas for a lot of unscripted television, whether it's like reality or a reality competition show or a straight up game show or comedy, they've come from the UK. The Mole, Survivor, Whose Line Is It Anyway, American Idol, like all of these things came from there. They didn't. We took them and we made them bigger and better here because everyone is hooked on TV, and we commercialize things so much more than they can because they're regulated differently, and there just isn't the funds for the same kinds of shows that we have. Yeah, it's amazing. And if you watched The Mole this season, you probably didn't go do the thing that I would have thought would have been great and be like, oh, I can't wait to go on the internet and talk to people about The Mole, because the second I watched the first episode, I was like, people are going to find the clues and figure it out on day one. And when the show ended, I went on Reddit and people immediately had already found all the hidden clues in the show. And I think that show, as good as the new season was, they didn't evolve it for today. They just made like the 2001 show in 2022, where Survivor has changed dramatically. And I think there's actually more things to discuss and go online today and talk about with Survivor. One last thing I want to say, which is crazy. And I can't be alone in people that are coming back to Survivor for the first time. So I stopped watching it basically when I went to when college started. That's when I fell off of Survivor, because I just didn't have time for it. I wasn't watching television anymore. And the only TV show I was watching was like Lost, you know, which was like cool, Survivor, but scripted. Right? It was amazing. I got Hurley's backpack right there from the show. I bought that in the Lost auction. So it's like, I haven't watched it since 2006. I've come back and I start watching it now. And there are some characters in some seasons, and I call them characters because they were casted because they're so over the top about everything. I'm not going to say any names.
We call the people that we see on TV characters because we know that we're not seeing their whole personhood. So no, that's actually language we use all the time in this podcast because we're referring to what we see of them on the screen, and then like maybe like little excerpts we get from, you know, Where Are They Now and stuff like that.
It's hard because you don't want to strip them of their humanity though too, right?
No, of course not.
I wish, but sometimes producing does do that and strips them of any sort of agency that they had.
Yeah, because the audience is the more important thing 99% of the time. Sometimes things will go too far, and then it's like, well, we have to be humans about this. We can't, you know, but most of the time it's like, well, we're making a show for the audience. We're not making a show for the contestants. So, which is why like there's so many audience contestants now, right? People come on and they're super fans now on the show. Like a lot of the people that come on now, I mean, I can't imagine you're going on Survivor not being a huge fan of it. It seems kind of crazy to do. You'd be very unprepared. You'd probably be eliminated right away. But there were some people who I thought were just downright villains, and not even just in the sense of like their portrayal on the show. Like it's very clear they're just like not good people. So I went on Twitter, I typed in their name, and there are people on like every week who are clearly watching for this for the first time and just like angrily like tweeting at them and like being like, I hate this person. I can't believe you did this. And it's like, you can just go back and I can't believe that like how many people must be watching this season like I am for the first time, like 15 years later, 5 years later, or 20 years later. And they're so mad about what they're seeing that they're going and attacking these people. And now when I saw that, I was like, well, I'll never go on this show. I wouldn't even consider it, because it seems like today, the worst part about being on Survivor is living in the age of the internet.
It's fair, honestly fair. We just finished up a season where the first eliminated from season 2 has a full-on breakdown in the reunion special of how awful she was treated by the media after she had left, and that was pre-Twitter,
That was 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah. Twitter wouldn't
I
even
can't
exist
imagine.
for 6 years at that point, you know?
They've crowdsourced the bullying because, like, it's not
Yes,
tabloids
yes,
going
they
after you
have.
anymore. It's just random people on Twitter.
Oh, man. It's brutal. It's so brutal.
Funny that you mentioned that, though. Casting is open for this summer's filming of Survivor, so
And you submitted.
I have not submitted
Oh.
yet.
Yeah,
It's
there
a
it is.
possibility.
Every day while watching this show, I would go back and forth between, do I want to go on Survivor or do I want to work on Survivor? And I think I've decided I want to work on Survivor. I don't want to go on Survivor.
That's
Because-
the better option and the more sustainable option.
Yes. Yes. Although I think it's probably really exhausting as well. I think it's probably really
It's got to
tough.
be full on for
It's a sprint.
2
Yeah.
months. Well, no, 4 months because you double it up. 4 months at a
Well,
time.
and then all of the time preceding that, where you have to build the games, test the games, be there. You have to find the locations, find place where you're gonna like hide things in the game. Like there's so many things you're gonna have to pre-plan and do. You're probably there for as long as you're there filming before you're filming.
I'm gonna cut us off here because we could spend hours. Just
Yeah,
talking
okay,
about
I'm
this.
sorry.
But no, you're good. We do have to get to the episode though.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have the whole cast to analyze and break down. So why don't we just start off with that before we get into the episode breakdown?
First impressions.
First impressions. So we will go. I have the whole list of everyone in alphabetical order.
I see it.
Let us
Yeah.
start with the Boran tribe. So we have 2 tribes, Boran and Samburu, which are actually named after real African tribes. So this isn't a translation thing that they just threw in lake, or I know they like to do that.
Last season it was kangaroo and alligator.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, while watching the show, every time I'm kind of like, man, it's so cool. I love these sets and these props. I'm like, are any people ever offended by like this though? Like the way that we're using like other people's cultures? It feels like it's hard to tell
talk about
sometimes.
that. We talk about that a lot. And one thing that already makes me a little dicey about this season, we did not get to know or see any of the people, like the people that live in or around Borneo, except for the weird bar scene that was impromptu. We don't get to see or know anything about the Aborigines or anyone that lives in the Australian outback except for a very small group of cowboys that come in for one reward challenge. We have now already seen African children chasing a car.
Yeah.
And we have named the tribes after actual tribes. And I'm like, okay, are we going to be treating the actual people that live there like they are non-human? Because we've now put them in we usually name it after animals or things in the land, and we've named it after actual tribes. And I'm not saying it's gonna go that direction, but it makes me concerned.
We're going to toe that line.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's better to at least be asking the questions while you're doing these things than it is to just be like, well, right? Because then at least hopefully you're trying to make the most thoughtful choice you can. Because I'm sure there are some people out there that probably are of the opinion that like just the conceit of the show itself might be problematic in some way or another, right? It's like, and I think that's not an entirely unfair argument to have, but again, it's just like everyone's going to have a very different perspective on it. And it, as like a white guy living in America, I can't ever possibly like know like, oh, it's like they didn't go to Italy and like put fake Italian mustaches on people. Like they're not doing like that. They're not necessarily like dressing people in like the clothes. So like there's a lot of places they could have gone wrong that they didn't, that a lesser show would have done. But these earlier seasons, I think, are a lot less thoughtful than the current ones. Because you've seen, so Jared, you've seen some of the new ones where they do like the outreach episodes and stuff like that. Like that's good, I think. Like I'm assuming, or I could be wrong about this, but it feels like all of the modern seasons have a reward challenge where you go out into like the village and they like bring supplies and like they interact.
I'm concerned that's going to happen this season, and it's just going to reek of white savior, where it's like, cool, we came this area where people live. This is where this is their home, and we're like, all right, but us mostly white Americans are gonna plop down right here and like, and look, we brought you some food, and they're like, you're fucking 12 feet from me, and now we're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You live in my backyard.
And I do actually think that they kind of toe that. They had those moments where they would go out into the community, they would give back, they would say, oh, here, a bunch of school children, here's school supplies, whatever. And now I do think in the post-40 world, we've kind of dipped back the other way. It could be a little bit because of COVID.
And maybe because it's also the same.
Yes.
It's Fiji, so it's always the same people.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, thank you for the second thing of school supplies. You were here 3 weeks ago.
COVID probably is a big part of it, though.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That is
true. They do have a nice working relationship with the people of Fiji, so I imagine that there's plenty of give back that we're not seeing.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're distracted again.
Let's go back. So we're talking about the cast.
Yeah.
We got Boran.
This happens all the time, so get used to it.
I mean, that's what a podcast is.
Yeah. So. Going down the line, Boran, alphabetical order, starting with Clarence Black, a 24 from Detroit, a high school basketball coach. We got our Clarence here.
We get a lot of Clarence in this episode. We'll probably talk more about Clarence into the actual episode.
Sure. I have one issue here. Why we have had 3 black men in Survivor so far in 3 seasons, 2 of which have been basketball coaches.
I mean, I feel like you could just make a blanket statement that up until even like the very most modern seasons, they've done a very bad job at casting anyone that's not white.
Yes. Yep. But we will continue to call it out every season because it's always in new and interesting ways. Like Jervis was mostly like given a pretty fair shake for the most part. I mean, he the only reason I say that is because he was given the lazy black man edit, but then he went on camera and was like, I'm being lazy so I can compete in the challenges. I'm like, well, that's hard to argue with if you're gonna come out and be like, I'm being lazy. Nick got fucking screwed, and now we have food crimes and other accusations this whole episode. So yeah, we'll get more into that.
Wild. Down the line, Tom Buchanan, 45 from Rich Valley, Virginia, a goat farmer.
He's the Habsburg of the Appalachians.
You're gonna have to explain that joke. I don't know what that is.
The Habsburgs were incredibly inbred, and he looks like he's from West Virginia.
Fuck.
He is from regular Virginia.
He's regular Virginia. Okay.
Yes.
Brilliant.
We have Jesse Camacho, 26, Orlando, Florida, a deputy sheriff. I believe that's Jesse, the second down on the left.
I don't.
Yes.
Oh, she's the one who was struggling for water. The one who was like, I am dehydrated. I have not drank anything. Not the one who like.
Not the one that passes out.
No, not the one who passes out.
That was Diane.
Yeah. The one who's like, we're not going to sleep at all tonight. Like, we're just going to be up drinking water.
Yeah.
She seems fun.
Yeah.
I liked her vibe.
Yeah.
Jared, we've gone like...
She's a cop.
Oh, ACAB.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, we've gone like, 2 minutes now and you haven't said anything about that? Wow.
The Survivor Turning Back Time podcast does not support police.
Every time there's a cop on the show that I like, I'm so mad.
We're now 2 for 2. I mean, very small sample size of Jesse, but 2 for 2 on cops on this show that I like, and I'm not happy about that.
I don't appreciate it.
I don't appreciate it.
The casting is both very good and very limited, it feels like, up until, like, again, these very modern seasons. Like, outside of even the last, like, I don't know, 8 seasons, it feels like there's always a cop, there's always someone from the military, there's always a teacher, there's always, like, every time.
What do you mean? They locked down the very underrepresented goat farmer demographic.
Yeah. Well, there's also always a farmer, right?
That's true.
They're like a cow farmer or a goat farmer, or, like there's a very specific. There's someone who's a nerd, right? Like there's a very specific casting that happens until I don't know 2016 maybe era. Like it feels like that's where things really started to change.
They're definitely checking boxes here, and it's pretty damn obvious after 3 in a row.
Yep.
Moving on, Kelly Goldsmith, 22, San Diego, a behavioral research analyst. Yeah, top right.
Okay. I have never seen that woman in my life, so she probably wins. She was on the show, I think. Either she's Amber or she wins.
She didn't do a lot, but like again, like you always kind of can tell, especially in the first episodes, who's going to be involved in like getting eliminated because they're telling that person's story in that episode.
Yep.
But it's true. There are a lot of people who go a lot farther who like you don't see a lot at the beginning.
I mean,
from
this picture, she looks like a predator, and I mean like Alien versus Predator, not like Michael Scoopin. She has the like hair like pulled back into like the sort of like cone head shape.
I think it's just an unflattering picture.
It's not a good picture.
I think it's
poor angle.
I think it's just an unflattering. I mean, her photo, unlike others here, it looks like she was having a rough day when they took this photo versus other people's photos. Some people look like fresh.
Weirdly candid compared to these other ones.
Well, I mean, so I'm looking on the Survivor fandom page, and like you can tell a lot of these photos are cutouts, right? And so like her picture is like out in the wilderness. Hers looks like, whereas like some of these other people look like, oh, they were like fresh and clean when they took these photos. So I think she got a bit of a raw deal here.
Moving on to Kim Johnson, 56, Oyster Bay, New York, a retired teacher. It's third down on the right.
How hard was it not to cast two Kims? How hard?
It's a great question.
This is going to be a problem the entire season for us.
It's a great question.
How could they not have the foresight to know that 21 years down the road, a podcast would be made reviewing their seasons where they have to talk about people in depth and having the same name would be a problem?
I mean, I think what they thought was one of these people will go by their last names, and it'll be Powers. Because there's a Kim Powers, and it's like, who are you going to call? You're going to call Johnson or Powers? You're going to go Powers.
You're going to go Powers. This one's Kim Powers? Powers is on Moran?
This is Johnson.
Kim Johnson.
This is Johnson
is,
dang.
Yeah, the retired teacher.
Okay. I don't have much hope of her making the merge. She looks frail.
I mean, she's the oldest by far.
Was she the one who told them to pour the water out?
I don't know, but that was the stupidest thing on the entire episode.
Yeah, it was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen happen on all of Survivor.
I screamed at the TV.
It was either her or it was Diane.
Yeah. If it was, I mean, yeah. I mean,
idiots.
God, I couldn't believe it. I watched this like 2 hours ago, so that it was fresh because I've watched so much Survivor recently that I was like, oh, I can't watch any other Survivor after I watch this, so I'm just gonna wait. And then I put it on, like a couple hours ago, so that it was fresh. And that was easily one of the dumbest things I've seen anyone do on all of Survivor. Let's pour out 2/3 of our water while we're out here in what is arguably almost like it's a desert.
It is. He says they're driving the equator line. I don't know if that's true, but Jeff says like right here we're on the equator, like, and you're just like, yeah, we don't need all this water.
Yeah, they're in Kenya.
Absurd.
I have this right there. The Shaba National Reserve in Kenya. Insane.
Wow.
Oh, and then Diane Ogden, 42, from Lincoln, Nebraska, a USPS mail carrier. Little ditty.
Of our now 3 first boots.
Sure.
She is probably the strongest of the 3 first boots. If you put all 3 of them in a competition together, she would beat Sonia and Deb. And that's about all I can say about her.
That's a low bar.
It's a very low bar.
Lex Vandenberg, 38, Santa Cruz, California, a marketing manager. Got right there. Lex is a cool looking dude.
He's punk as shit. I like him.
Yeah. This is, I mean, what?
Yes.
We're getting into the real heavy punk era.
Oh, 90s
We're coming out of
90s
punk / grunge into 2000s pop punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks like he could be in Blink-182.
He's like an elder Gen X guy. So he seems like he's also kind of like an asshole. Right? Like, he definitely seems like he's punk, but also like he's like kind of a dick. Right? Like, he's playing it nice, like, oh, I'm a cool guy, but I don't know. And again, I don't remember anything else from this season other than like who won, which it was so crazy to me when I started flipping through the old seasons to figure out where to start. And I was like, oh, this person won, this person won. Just like the second I saw their faces, I remembered. I don't know. He seems like he might be an asshole, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong because now I'm going to watch the rest of the season because I started the first episode.
Was it jarring? Because I know you've been watching more of the newer seasons, and that's the whole reason why I'm like, Christian should come on and really talk about the show, because you said on Unranked that, like, oh, I've been getting into Survivor again. I'm like, perfect. It's great timing. Is it jarring going back and thrown into standard definition?
Well, first of all, that's why I started at 20, because the last season I saw was 14. That was the last one I remember anything about and who won, etc. And I was like, all right, let me load up 15, and 15 started. And I was like, all right, where's HD start? And then I was like, okay, I'm going to get a little bit, I'll just start with 20. And I started with 20, and Survivor, older Survivor put a lot more implication on the actual survival aspect of it, which I think was like fun for the beginning of the show, and I think it needed to kind of go away to an extent that it has for the show to continue and change and like be viable long term, because it feels cruel at times, like and less enjoyable.
We talk about this all the time through Australia, that like it was cool for like 3 episodes, and then we're like, oh my god, these people are just suffering. Like there's not even anything interesting happening because they're just laying around suffering. And my first thought when we saw them in the truck in Africa was, oh shit. Oh shit, this is gonna be so much worse.
And that's I think part of why I was like, I'm gonna start closer to like 20, because I just need it to feel a little bit more modern. And I also just want the people to be a little bit more modern, because again, the people we're watching right now, they're basically an entire generation older. So anyone that's, in their like mid to late 30s, like they're older Gen X people, whereas today they'd be like older millennials. And so anyone that's above that, like we have like the boomers. And so then you have to think about who the audience is for this show. And it's primarily like boomer aged people. And, it's just, that's the culture at the time. There's just so much more like bootstrap bullshit and like suffering, like it's suffer porn is like what this is, it's like pain porn for people. And I people don't want that anymore. They want to see people like actually like play a game. They want it to be like both physical and psychological. And with this, it's, if you're good at just like wading through shit, you're going to have a much better shot than other people. But is that fun? Is that like something I want to watch more than once? Like maybe not as much.
No.
How much human suffering can we, as an audience?
Yeah.
see?
Which I actually do enjoy going back and seeing the bootstraps bullshit, because it's so fun to make fun of.
Sure. Yes.
And the amount of progress. I mean, like, listen, shit ain't perfect. It's December 2022. Shit ain't perfect.
No.
But
it isn't anywhere though.
How far we've come from 2001 to now,
it's incredible.
Insane.
Yeah. It feels like a different society at times. But also
in a lot of ways it is, and in a lot of good ways it is.
Depends on where you live, who your friends are, who your family are, if that's true as well. I live in Los Angeles. Like I have a very different lifestyle and a very different network of friends and family than I think a lot of other people do. Leaving this bubble is always surprising to me when I meet people. I'm like, what do you think? Oh man, you guys are out of your fucking minds over here. So watching it is humbling almost at times to be like, oh wow, we've made so much progress, but boy, were we dumb.
The world has come a long way. It really has. Yeah. We've still got a way to go, but we've come quite a long way. And network television has come a long way, which I can appreciate.
Yeah.
I'm going to round out this tribe real quick. We have Ethan Zone, 27
Mr. Handsome.
from New York.
Yeah.
A professional soccer player.
I think Ethan's going to be a star of this season.
Ooh, what makes you say that?
He's very charismatic. He's very handsome. He seems to have taken the de facto leader of the tribe role in a time when that isn't a death sentence. And actually is a boon. Like, Colby was the de facto leader of his tribe, and nobody ever came for him. So,
that's true.
If Baran ends up like with more people at the merge, I could see him being a very strong candidate into like a Final Four.
Okay. My biggest question is, I've never lived in New York. I know how like tight and compact it is. Where are you finding professional soccer leagues in New York that aren't the MLS?
It's a good question.
I mean, I would assume it was MLS, right?
I don't.
It could be, yeah.
I'll look it up later. I don't think it was, but who knows?
It might not have been. I don't know what it would have been though. Otherwise, if not,
I also
maybe
wouldn't be surprised if soccer's more popular in New York. It is a city of immigrants. So there might,
Yeah.
you know, it's the boroughs are not created equal. There are some with a lot more space than others.
It absolutely is more popular in New York than where I'm from, where we just got an MLS team in like 2018.
It is. Football is going to blow up here in the U.S. It is going to get huge. Like LA now got its second team just a year or two ago, and now everyone loves like the Los Angeles Football Club. And today, Queens, like New York, just like approved a very expensive New York City Football Club stadium in Queens that they're going to build. Like today, that was announced. So yeah, it's becoming much more popular. I think partially because I think baseball has stagnated.
Yep.
And there are a lot of people that don't want their kids playing football. And so their kids are playing soccer. And those kids have grown up and now are fans of soccer. And there are a lot more people who watch things internationally. And we all interact with people on the internet internationally very, like, much more than we used to. And we see how big soccer is. And it's weird for us to not be a part of that. Like, you know, like we're all indoctrinated to think like we're the best at everything growing up when we were kids. And it's like, well, why aren't we fucking involved at all? Like when the World Cup shows up, like we're a joke. So why aren't we, you know, and that's never going to change until there's a generational shift. And I think it's not going to happen now, but in 10 to 15 years, the American World Cup teams are going to be much more viable than they ever have been, because you're going to have a generation of adults who grew up playing and caring about this stuff. So yeah, I 20 years ago, I don't know what he was doing though.
If you believe any of the commercials that are on right now, they have a chance this year.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
They don't, but
Yeah.
No.
the ads during NFL games sure say they do. Jumping over to Sambaru.
Yeah, Sambro. Okay.
We have Carl Bilacioni. I definitely said that wrong, but 46, Winter Springs, Florida, a dentist.
He's the third understudy on Checa Vale for The Sopranos.
What a specific call out. I like it.
He does look like him though.
He's the backup stand-in. You know, when you need the over-the-shoulder shots.
He is our one medical professional, except he's a dentist.
Hey, if anyone's teeth starts going bad, you know who to call.
Check those boxes.
Honestly, they probably have to know how to do CPR.
To be on the show? The cameraman at least.
No, I mean like as a dentist, because I would imagine there are people that have adverse effects to possibly like materials they're using, whether it's like an anesthetic or something. Like they probably, I think most medical professionals have to know at least things like CPR.
That makes sense.
God, I would hope so. But the more I learn and grow up, the more I'm like,
Yeah,
adults with
everyone's making
heavy
everything
degrees don't necessarily know things.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just because you have status does not mean you are intelligent.
No.
Unfortunately.
No, you just might have like rich parents or something.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Teresa Cooper, 48, from Jackson, Georgia, a flight attendant. 46.
Oh, interesting. On the wiki, it has 42.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
She's in her 40s.
She's 42. Carl's 46. I had my ages jumbled together. Yeah, I don't really have any strong opinions on Teresa. They didn't really show her this much this episode.
No, I agree.
I mean, we didn't spend as much time with Sambaro, period.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep, this is the curse of the first episode, in that you're pretty much only going to spend time with the tribe that goes to tribal council. We get a little bit of Sambaru before the challenge, but not much.
Yeah.
No.
On the top right of our page, Silas Gaither, 23, from LA, a bartender.
He is... Oh, I remember who he is. Yes. I like him quite a bit, actually. I think he's going to be a little bit of a shit starter around camp. We gave him the, what I'll call the gossip gay edit, where he's like mocking someone behind their back. Right? Wasn't that Silas?
No, I think that was Brandon. The other bartender.
Both bartenders are on the same tribe?
Correct. It's a little confusing.
Okay, well then take back everything I said. Silas is my pick for who I think wins then, because I got him mixed up with the other one.
With Ethan?
With the other bartender.
Oh, okay.
No, Ethan I think probably doesn't quite make it to the end, but gets really, really close.
Okay.
Silas is my early winner pick.
Gotcha.
If Sambaru is in the dominant position after the merge.
Sure. As we find out in these early seasons, that is way more important than later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank Garrison, 43, from Odessa, New York, a telephone technician. This is our ex-military guy.
Frank's gonna be endless entertainment value for this podcast. Welcome to Keith Round 2, baby.
Yeah, he does seem like he's trying to be the power position and order everyone around at any given point.
You take the awfulness of Keith, add in the two brain cells both fighting for third place of Sean, and you get him. And I'm very excited to rip him down to the studs.
But that's also first impression, right? Like, so many the first, in my opinion, the first like two tribal councils are probably some of the hardest to get through, because so many people break within the first like 6, maybe 9 days of the show, where they realize like, oh, I was not prepared to be hungry. I was not prepared to not have water. I was like, and they just start like, people just spiral. They self-destruct. They do like really, you know, like a lot of people do things or act ways. Like, I mean, we're gonna talk about the cherries and the beans, but like that seems like something that, like a mistake that's almost like, man, I fucked up. And I believe that he really meant that when he owned up to it, because it seemed like it was truly just like a moment of weakness, and he was just like I can't handle this, like, and so that's why he made those decisions.
But all that's very important. I'm glad you said it, Christian. But let me give you an exact quote from Frank. They ask him what branch you were in, referring to his military service, and he says, and I quote, "I was in the American branch. It's called freedom."
Yeah.
I don't need anything. I now know everything about Frank I need to know, and I'm going to enjoy it every second he's on the screen.
Well, and so here's the crazy part about that to me, right? When that played, because one of the things with a lot of the older seasons is there's so much like just jingoism and like military, just fucking like, oh, we love this, and like, yeah, like our boys in Iraq and like XYZ, because it was the most televised war of all time, right? And it was so much unbelievable propaganda that I could not believe when I just saw that this was filmed. And the filming of this ended in August. So weeks before September 11th. I would have assumed, based on like that already, that was like a post 9/11 world. So knowing that it wasn't, I'm like, oh, this has just always been here. And this 9/11 was just an excuse for these people to take over and like just make that a part of the culture in a much bigger way than it ever was. But like, these motherfuckers have always been around. They've been drinking the Kool-Aid since day one. That was, I couldn't believe it when he said that. And then I now found out it was pre 9/11. No, like, that sounds like, you
Christian,
know,
the false patriotism and war crimes are load bearing to American history. What are you talking about?
I carry a shred of optimism for humanity from time to time, and I just constantly am disappointed. Instead of just like being cynical, I'm just constantly disappointed.
We just have to move to the point where we hit the Futurama level of, we've moved past country borders. We're just the U.S. or the world government. We have a world flag, an Earth flag, and that's just us.
Don't tell the evangelicals that. They think that's how Revelation starts.
Or, so. I mean, I guess in that same standpoint, we just need an Independence Day type war.
No, because we had it. We had a common enemy of COVID-19.
No, you can't punch a disease in the face. That's the only thing.
Like, you know,
people don't get it. You have to do like kind things to make a disease go away. You can't just like shoot it with an AK-47, so people don't get it.
It's good we're all watching Survivor, though, because ultimately at the end of the day we'll all be living in the Survivor global warming crisis world at some point or another.
God,
so it's
so good,
you know,
at
this
staying
is
on
just
message.
This is just preparation, you know, like, honestly, watching the newer seasons with the amount of times, like, we have a crazy storm coming, I'm like, boy, this show's going to get hard to make soon. Like, I don't know how they're going to have to change their schedules dramatically. They're going to have to completely shake up where they're filming it. Like, in a decade, like, a lot of the locations they're using, they might not reliably be able to do them there. It's going to be very difficult.
Okay, we got to move on because we're way
Yeah, it's gonna be a
behind
7-hour podcast.
Sorry,
Good,
I can't
I'm
help myself.
No, I love this. See, I have both you and I have Jared are the ones that I usually rein in Jared to do both of you at the same time. This is great. I love it. I could honestly sit and listen for most of this. Anyway, Kim Powers, 29, from oh, this is going to be a problem. Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, a freelance marketer.
Oh, yeah.
That's how you say it, Conshohocken.
Oh, good.
I think she's this one. The problem is we don't see her in a hat during this episode.
That's true.
And the picture has her in a hat. So I'm she's one of these two.
I think it's bottom right.
Okay.
That is a era accurate visor from the early 2000s. That is no
Correct.
hat.
Yeah, again, not a whole lot to go on here. I hope that she's secretly female rich because she's also in marketing like Rich was, because once again we have our archetypes in our rosters and have to stick with them. But I would love to see what the female version of Rich looks like in an early season.
I do think the women professionals who have like the more higher level jobs are often kind of like, people don't take them as seriously as they should, and people don't give them credit for how much shit they had to eat to get to their positions. By being young women in a high profile job, they have to deal with so much fucking nonsense, and they know how to bite their tongues. That gets them far in games. That makes them dangerous, and people don't think about it.
Or they're villainized for being that person.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you got to where you are.
Well, if women are strong, then then they're just like, they're a bitch, is what people would say back then, right? They wouldn't. Yep. They're not like strategic. They're not good at the game. They're just, oh, that bitch. Like, that's what they would have said back then. They wouldn't have said, but that's how it goes.
And that's already shown its ugly head.
Yep.
Our other bartender, Brandon Quinton, 25, from Dallas, Texas.
This is the one who I was talking. He gets the sassy gay edit. I am very interested in him. I think that he could like shake up the tribe in really interesting ways. By the fact that he's like already willing to like pull people aside and like talk shit about them.
Yeah. Great.
We're here for the drama, baby.
Let's do it.
He also seems like he thinks he's the shit.
Oh yeah. You have to have that level of confidence.
I need it.
Yeah.
I need that person somewhere. And it does. It's early reality TV trying to make a spectacle out of it, and them seeing what worked in season 1 and 2, and they just want more of that. Lindsay Richter, 26, from Portland, Oregon, an advertising account executive. This is our other one that kind of looks like...
I'm sure the two of them will differentiate themselves from the other one in future episodes, is all I can say. Because, again, it's Samburu. We didn't get a whole lot of them.
It's true.
Correct. Yeah. And you're not going to, because you can't.
It was literally just Carl.
Yeah.
Or, no, Frank, sorry.
Frank, yeah.
Yeah. It was just Frank that we got a lot of.
In just a single scene of them walking to camp. And finally, Linda Spencer, 44, Boston, Massachusetts, a career counselor.
Linda, so far, episode 1, is my favorite person on the show.
Ooh,
not my favorite player, not my favorite character, but she has a confessional where she talks about like how like this is the mother continent, how she feels so in touch with the land that she's so happy to be here, and like very like namaste, like spiritual. And I just really appreciated it because we haven't gotten that in seasons 1 or 2. The closest we got was Colby, Keith, and Tina just yeeting statues into a river and being like, and the land helped us. So it's cool to get it from the start with someone that really seems to care.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first true hippie on Survivor, in a way.
Unless you count Kimmy, the vegetarian, or the vegan.
Sure, sure.
But... a different world.
Yeah.
When that was controversial on TV.
Well, she was very loud about it.
Well, okay. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
If you have a thing and you want to stick to it, I'm going to tell everybody about it. Hell, we made a podcast about it.
Correct.
Anyway, that is our full cast. We have all 16 in 39 days, not 44, whatever the hell we're doing.
Thank God.
Just 39. We've learned our lessons, kind of.
We learned some lessons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to call this the speed round of going through the episode.
Sure.
To prevent us from going 2 hours of an episode. But I do want to start with what's the general feel? What do you get from this that you haven't seen so far in Survivor? What are big changes that you've noticed from anything? I'm going to start with Jared.
They have to keep watch. They have to have 2 people stay awake at night so that they don't get eaten by wildlife.
Yeah, that's a danger factor that we have not seen before.
What?
I can't believe... I can because it's television, but I cannot believe that they allowed themselves to get in this situation where they could be in danger at any given moment.
They gave them spears. They put up a fence that they had to rebuild. But,
Sure.
like, Jesus. Do you think the cameramen all have guns?
Yeah, somebody has to.
Yeah. Like, oh, a hippo could just walk in and just kill everyone.
They probably have like a hired ranger or something with them. They're probably paying
I'm
for
sure.
some security services. However, that just goes to show how in the early seasons of Survivor, someone higher up in the executive team didn't quite, you only figure out what the show is and what it should be, like as you change it. And they went the wrong direction. I think they went the wrong direction in season 2 and season 3 by just making it more brutal as it went on. And it's just so different and it's so much better now. And I think like even with the seasons being shorter now too, it's just people don't want to see people suffer and in pain anymore. Whereas back then, people wanted that. People were out for blood on TV.
Well, and it also doesn't, part of it doesn't feel genuine. Because, like, the wildlife can kill you, but you know that this doesn't end like that. Like, I joked at the end of our last season that the over-under on someone getting eaten by a hippo was, like, 0.5. Like, I think, like, I put my money that, like, half a person gets eaten by a hippo.
Yeah.
But, like, that doesn't happen because the show would be canceled. There's no fucking way that somebody died and then they're like, all right, we're going to keep going or we're going to show you this.
I mean, they're still making Wipeout. Someone died on Wipeout.
Someone died on... That's why they stopped making it?
That's part of why, but I think they're still making it though.
I loved Wipeout.
I mean, people have died on game shows and stuff before, and it hasn't. And there's plenty of people that have almost died in Survivor, and they're still going.
That's true. We just watched Scoopin' almost die in Survivor.
Yeah. I mean, that one was... It wasn't negligence, but, like...
Sure.
He did something himself and got hurt, not, you just... Like, if season 2...
That was the
Keith
fire,
had gotten
right?
sucked
Yeah,
away,
yeah,
in the fire. If Keith had gotten sucked away in that river and died, like, I don't think the show recovers from that. So...
Especially not with it being, like, the second season.
Right.
And
so there's part of it that just doesn't feel... And, like you said, like, they probably have a park ranger or something with them right off camera. Like... You can only be so extreme on on a reality show before it's like, all right, what's happening right behind the camera that's actually keeping these people safe?
But with the show early on, it didn't ever feel like it was like a true game show in the same way it does now, and it felt much more like almost like a live like social experiment documentary. And it was just how much pain can we put people through? Can we break them? Let's find out. That's like ultimately like what the show is right now. Like in this first episode, there's only one challenge, right? There aren't 2 separate war challenges. Like
no.
They very much make sure now, like one group of people every episode is getting some kind of like food or comfort reward.
They do in pretty much every episode in season 2. I think it's just like a first episode thing that they don't in these early seasons.
Yeah,
I would say episode 1, 2, or 3. They like to wrap it all into a single challenge where you would get a reward and also immunity from that same challenge.
But and that just goes to show like so much more of the show was about watching them try to survive, as opposed to like watching the groups try to form like, these sort of like social dynamics and like play games against each other or things like that, which is ultimately just more fun. Because if it was still like it was, I wouldn't be watching it, I think. I don't think I could put myself through 40 seasons of that.
Agreed. I have another Frank quote for you all.
Go on.
someone, I don't know what the context was. I think somebody being like, slow down, take a break or something like that. And he was like, I had 9 months of softness in my mother's womb. That's all I need.
All
That's
right.
what we look forward to all season.
What a boomer thing to say.
Frank would watch 40 seasons of human suffering, I think. Yeah, I did also write down it was Kim from Boron that asked to remove the water.
Okay.
Okay, I was looking
idea.
it up.
Yeah.
That is, I gotta say, crazy.
Yeah, so
And how there were people like immediately just being like, do not fucking pour out our water is, I don't understand at all.
So that's insane. And for context, for people who maybe haven't seen the season in a long time or are just for some reason listening to us and not watching Survivor, they're given, similar to Australia, it's like, hey, take everything you can carry, but you have to carry it. Except they give them like a stretcher thing to carry it on. And including enough water for the first 3 to 6 days. We're in the same situation. They cannot drink the water, the dysentery water from the watering hole. They need to boil it. And yeah, they decide it's too heavy, so we're just gonna pour a bunch of it out. And apparently,
She decided it's too. She goes, pour the water out. No one else is saying it. She's just like, we can't carry that this whole way. What are you thinking?
Insane.
You're gonna need it.
And apparently, in the gourds that are carrying the water, if the lid comes off, it makes the water undrinkable, from what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
They said it tastes like, that it smells and tastes like turpentine if the lid of the gourd comes off.
My guess is they either sealed it with something to keep the bugs out, or like they put, what is it, iodine? I know that when out surviving, you can put iodine to coat any sort of bug or enzyme to like make it pass through your body. So your body doesn't absorb it, is essentially the whole point.
Yeah, it helps at least.
Yeah.
I don't know why the sun would make it spoil. It's water. I don't know how the sun and iodine interact with each other, but it gave Jesse the Varner treatment of just like day one, vomiting your guts out.
Boom, you're sick. Let's do it. I do want to point out that I think they undersold the water situation.
Totally.
I think Survivor did them a little dirty, where everything we've seen so far is there is water plentiful everywhere.
Yes.
This is just a swamp.
Usually on a beach.
Yeah.
Today,
Yeah.
at least.
Or even last season, by a river.
Yeah.
You still have to boil it, but it's a river. Yeah, no, they're like, all right, you're going to have to trudge out what looks like a good 15-minute or so walk, maybe longer from the bean incident, as it will be known. And it's literally a place where the animals drink from and shit in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Brutal.
Dysentery Central, baby. We even have to describe what dysentery is because of it. Cool. I'm going to move on. Christian, any thoughts?
I mean, the biggest thing that jumps out to me is just the location. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are like me who've had the thought oh, it'd be cool if you did it in a different non-beach location. Obviously, they kind of did that last season as well. But really just putting them in the desert just feels mean.
Yeah.
It just feels kind of cruel and kind of punishing, and makes it a little bit less fun. But we'll never get, I think, anything away from a beach ever again. This feels probably I can't remember correctly, but I don't know if they ever do anything that's non-beach, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that watch these shows who'd be less interested and it would make less money if you didn't have half the cast in bikinis on the beach. That's why they'll never also do a cold season, because you know what's not going to sell on TV? It's women huddled around fires and parkas. That's not what they want to see visually. There are just a lot of meat and potatoes men who are in their 40s this season who are well, this, that's not what they came here for. They didn't want to just see people turn into human beef jerky, fucking out roasting in the sun, which is what it feels like this season is going to be.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like.
So I think the two things we need to talk about in depth for the episode are the cherry drama and the bean drama. The bean incident.
I mean, it's the same package, right?
It's the same package. It's the opposite of the fish economy, which is a good thing, where you've been a provider for your tribe, and then therefore you are the fish economy. Now you are the cherry thief.
Yeah,
And
I mean, the
that is a
fact that they're
problem.
getting canned food felt weird to me too, because I know like on day one they usually give them some food, but then they have like the rice or things like that in modern seasons. But I was like, it's strange that we're getting cans of food, and I find that like really disconcerting as about what they're walking into right now.
They did it in season 1 and 2.
Okay,
So
all
far
right.
we're at 100% hit rate on canned food.
Interesting. They
but
dropped that. I wonder when.
Well, it's so far we're now 3 for 3 on it causing drama within the tribes. Of it being like, we have to talk about things, we have to split things, but like not very engaging drama to watch. This is probably the most watchable of the dramas, and also like because it actually leads to like a group discussion, and also, okay, what did you guys make of this incident? What are your overall thoughts? These incidents.
The cherry one I see as almost nothing. Like it's middle school cattiness of I think he took 2. Did he take 2? Oh no.
They give us a slow-mo shot of him
Yeah.
eating 2 to like look how evil he is.
Yeah. Honestly,
The
that's just build up for the first one or for the second one.
Yeah.
The cherry one doesn't matter in a vacuum, but because of the beans, the cherry one does matter. Because here's the thing: Mr. Handsome sees him eating that second cherry, and he's like, who does this guy think he fucking is? And I get that, but he didn't start trouble. He didn't bring it up. He didn't say anything about it. And then the beans happen, and he's like, well, fuck this guy. Is like very much like, because he knew, because he saw that and he caught it. I think that typically spells certain doom for you. However, he got lucky. He got lucky that someone basically like tapped out.
And that he is giant.
Yeah.
Like they have seen, these contestants have presumably seen seasons 1 and 2. They know that all of the challenges before the merge are going to be physical, and that he is the strongest guy on their team. They are screwed if they vote him off. So they keep him.
Yep. But also, like, again, I really think, like, a lot of people make some of their worst decisions in the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
Because you're just in this environment that, as much as you think you're prepared for it, you get there and it's like, I am not prepared for this. And that's what I really think he thought, like, he could get away with it. And it wasn't about, like, I'm going to do this dick move. It was about, like, this guy did not think he could, like, he could manage without that food. And that's why it happened. It's possible that Diane asked for it, which is what he said.
And then she lied.
It's
Which
possible.
They do kind of make it look that way. They give her a cheeky grin toward the camera when they're.
Oh, we didn't get an edit of it. And typically we do, right? Like if someone claims that someone did something like that, like they don't usually, as far as I'm aware, hide stuff from us that way. Like if there's an answer on the show, because you don't want the show itself to be an unreliable narrator. So it's really.
But it is.
No, it is. I feel like it's gotten much, much better, though. So it's hard to know because I'm watching it, having just watched 17 seasons of the current like version of the show, and I'm just like, I want to believe that she didn't do this because they didn't show us, because that's how it should work.
Or it was just
and
a
I don't want to feel
miscommunication.
lied to as like as a person in the audience.
Or it's a thing where, like, you know, he was trying to ask to be nice, but also a little bit selfish, and she sounded more enthusiastic than she actually was. Like, it's nuanced.
But he ate that second cherry.
But Tom made me very uncomfortable through this whole fighting debacle.
Okay, go on.
Tom was using language that was, like, borderline, like, hate crime language sprinkled in. Like, it felt like he was on the cusp of dropping the N-word at any given moment. Like, so he's shown, Clarence shows him like a handshake ahead of time, like this is our tribe handshake, and he's like, we're not doing your handshake no more, boy. Like, this is our handshake. I don't know if he used the word boy, but it sure felt like he did. And just a lot of really, like, domineering, holier than thou, like...
Yeah, I got that vibe from him as well.
Yeah,
I very much got that vibe from him.
And I was so excited to like Tom. Like, look at this fucking doofus goat farmer running around Africa. He's racist. Shit. And it's first impressions. It could change.
Yeah.
But I was uncomfortable.
it was weird though because he did have conversations with him. Was just like, all right, you're gonna promise me that you're not gonna do it again. He's like, all right, well, I forgive. So I was like, I was a little torn on him.
He said, I forgive, but I never forget. Which is,
but you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Yeah,
I do think. I think stealing food from the tribe is like there has to be a really compelling reason to vote anyone else out if it's not that person.
Agreed.
You know, that is.
It's a really bad thing to do. I just, I don't know. Like nobody else was putting themselves in was giving off the vibe that they felt superior to Clarence. Everyone else felt like they were pissed, but they were considering getting rid of him, but they were going to work through it. Tom felt like, oh, I know I'm better than this guy, and it felt gross. Yeah.
It's hard to tell because I also felt like he just feels that way about everyone that's younger than him too, though. So it's I there was part of me where like I felt back and forth on him. You know, like I can't tell. Like you'll know for sure. Like in another episode or two, right? Like you'll be able to tell what this guy's deal is. But like Clarence really truly seemed to me like someone that just he made a mistake. He was a deceitful. Like he knew what he was doing. You know, it wasn't an accident.
No,
but it was a mistake. Yeah, it was. I think if he could go back and undo it, I think he would. And part of me believes that he's going to like really up his game for the rest of the season and not be that guy again.
I hope so.
But I could be wrong. But that's the vibe I got. Like he truly seemed like I fucked up because he tried to deflect. He tried to say that she asked for the food. We don't know because we didn't get to see that interaction. And that's where I feel kind of lied to. And I wish they had showed it to us. But
that's the difference.
Kind of believe him.
That's the difference between old Survivor and modern Survivor is they both have unreliable narrators. But new Survivor will have an unreliable narrator for a reason. They'll come back. Show you. Yeah, they'll come back and be like, ho, there was this thing that we didn't show you. And then we'll show you.
Yeah, and so for context, we get our first immunity challenge. What did you guys think of the challenge?
It's
not great.
Same. It's the fire challenge again.
I liked it better than the fire challenge in season 2.
Yeah.
I liked the cart better than the 3 legs of different boats across rivers they did in season 2. It looked really hard.
Oh yeah, this is physical to the T. It's just.
But it's just like
as a unit.
The bad game design was.
It's just like physical mostly, you know.
Yeah. And there were several times where the path is only wide enough for one of the carts at a time, so you can't even pass them. Like you're just getting it through. As long as you're keeping pace, you can't overtake them in those times. So what's the point?
I also found it visually uninteresting. You know, watching the current seasons, I continued to think to myself like, I wish they dressed these up a little bit more to make them look like they fit in with the world a little bit more. And now seeing season 3. Where it's like there's no color, like there aren't like these big signs, like nothing's like popping, and it's like everything is just like raw materials. I'm like, actually, I was wrong. That isn't something I want to see. I think it's boring, it's kind of ugly, and it's much less fun. And it makes this just look even more brutal. Like we're just putting people in like a position of like tough manual labor so that they could go back to their like shitty living space afterwards.
And have no water.
Yeah, when they're already dehydrated, and it shows because Diane passes out. Like, she's going down toward the end of this challenge anyway.
Yeah.
And that's probably the reason why Simbaru pulls ahead at the end.
Yep.
It's just physically gassed, can't do it anymore.
Yeah, it's because they didn't have any fucking water. Because like...
Why'd you pour it out?
Oh, man.
Which you should make a quick note that Baran, I don't remember who it was on Baran, took apart a telescope that they had given to watch out for...
That was Simbaru.
Yeah, that's what I said. No, I said Baran. Yep. Sumbara took apart a telescope, thank you.
Was that a personal item someone had?
No, they said it was given to them to watch for wildlife approaching on them.
Yeah, they opened the medical kit, and it was in the medical kit for whatever reason.
Wild. I think it was... Who was it that did that? It was either... I want to say it was Lindsay. It was either Lindsay or Teresa.
Kim searches the medical kit.
Well, I was wrong on both counts.
There you go. And then Silas uses the lens to start it.
Okay.
The idea that like we'd know all of these people's names in the first episode, it's it's easier once you get down to like 12 people that are going to matter.
But that definitely helped them in the challenge, having water to drink. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's, after the tribals when we get the bean incident. And then we pretty much go to tribal right away.
Yeah. I'm gonna quick wrap a couple things that I did want to notice. At the very top of the episode, like you said, we don't see much of the people around here. In this episode, they're in a Jeep driving down the road, and then this guy who is apparently driving the Jeep is just like, okay, get out. Down, down, down. He's yelling at everyone. Down, 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 down. Get off the Jeep. Okay, bye-bye. Have a nice day. And it just drives away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely
Very
crazy.
unceremonious, the entire introduction.
Yeah. I liked it.
But it wasn't
was a
Survivor yet.
cute little humor.
Current Survivor, you're on a boat. Very different. Everyone's excited to be there. Old Survivor,
It's true.
They're
like,
not excited.
good luck. See you later, assholes. Like, get off the bus.
Everyone struggles with fire, and then it wasn't until Simbaru actually gets it together with the lens that anyone gets fire, and they're the only ones that do actually make it work.
Yeah.
The immunity idol, I don't super like the idol. It's
Fine.
It's fine. It's not season 1 racist.
No, at least I don't know enough about Kenya to know if the idol is appropriate to the area they're in.
Yeah.
But I also don't trust the show to know that. So, no, the one in Borneo is just racist. It's just blackface on an idol in Malaysia
Asia, yeah.
for some reason. This one at least is geographically correct and might be respectful, but I have no way of knowing.
It seems pretty locally, so like everything it's made out of seems pretty locally sourced. It looks like 2 children stacked on top of each other. Again, a little totem-esque,
Yeah.
which is the part that I'm not super thrilled with. Grass hair, but again, we're not experts on African culture, so we're not gonna dig in and say, yeah, they're wrong. How dare they? And we talked about the challenge, really, and then we get to we get to tribal council. And there's not a whole lot here other than the bean incident.
Yeah, they want to get rid of Clarence because of the bean incident. They cannot because of his physical strength. And I think, Clarence gets 2 votes from Diane and Tom?
Diane and
Yes.
Tom, that's it.
Yeah.
Tom will absolutely try to drive this man into the ground before he will let up on this bean incident.
Yeah, this is not the last time that the bean incident will come up, I imagine, in this season.
I can't imagine.
I mean, Ethan, interestingly, who's the one person who saw him eat the second cherry, he could have buried him here, right? Like, Ethan could have just been like, well, I saw you eat that second cherry, and then you ate the beans. Like, I wanted to give you benefit of the doubt, but you showed that, you're not deserving it. But instead, he's just like, Diane's got to go. We need Clarence. Like, I'm not going to forget he did that, but, like, I'm
It
not
seems like
voting
his own
Clarence
tribe
out.
is going to,
Yeah.
if they have the power at the merge, his own tribe's going to turn on him.
Yeah. But it also
as
tells you
soon as they
Ethan's smart. He's not just good looking.
Yeah. No, Ethan is, like I said, if Sambaru does... Actually, I'm going to say this. Sambaru, if Sambaru's in charge, Silas is my winner pick. If not, it's Ethan. Because if Boran's in charge, then I guess I don't really see how they get rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way too early winner prediction for you.
I love a way too early winner prediction. You've saved me a segment. I'm glad. Cool. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about was what do you feel about the apology made at Tribal Council?
He's already apologized, so it just feels like the same apology again.
This is I'm telling the story to Jeff, but I need everyone to be a part of this apology.
Yeah, it's fine. Like, I can tell he feels bad. It was very obviously a dumb mistake. He feels trapped.
That's the important thing, though.
It
right?
feels like
it
just
felt
move
more
on.
sincere.
Yeah, it definitely did feel more sincere. By that point in the episode, I was like, okay, I've now heard him apologize 4 times. Like, I get it.
Let's move past. Show me the votes.
Yeah.
But when they weren't at Tribal, when they were first talking about it, it was mostly deflection.
Yeah.
And it was
a lot
like, I
defensive.
did this for her, I did this for her. And then there it was like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this. Like, like he only tried to deflect one time there, and then he was like, you're right. Like, I shouldn't have eaten it. I'm sorry I ate it. I'm sorry to you. I'm sorry. Like, he very much was like, I can't screw around like this. Like, this is definitely fuck around, find out environment on Survivor.
In Tribal Council, you feel the weight of it.
Yeah. Diane gets 6 votes. Ethan, Clarence, Kim, Jay. Have to be specific. Kim, Jay, Lex, Kelly, and Jesse all vote Diane, and Clarence gets Tom and Diane's vote. We will not see any more of Diane. This is the end of Diane. How do you think Diane would fare on a modern season?
I don't know, because she just got dehydrated and passed out. And then, like, I didn't talk
She'd also be 63 now.
Her ceiling to me is kind of like a goat that gets dragged along because she doesn't do anything and is just kind of dehydrated and sad. But, like, I don't have anything to go off of because the environment took her out before the votes did.
Yeah.
Which is surprising because she's a mail carrier, right? So she should have like very good endurance and stamina, like you would think. But I guess like if a lot of mail carriers are primarily just driving to locations, and like you don't know what her role is. But I would have thought by that occupation she would have more stamina. She would be smarter about like, oh, I'm on my feet a lot, right? Like I know how to walk, I know how to, and then here she is just laying out like, again, turning into human jerky, like right on the middle of the show. I was surprised by that because
push yourself too far, maybe.
I wonder if during that opening walk segment, if she pushed too hard, because she did seem like she was trying to lead that group.
Yeah.
And really set a pace. And
I think if they didn't pour that water out, Diane would still be sitting on the group. I mean, it's possible they would have still voted her out, but
I think if they didn't pour the water out, that they could have competed in the challenge.
They could have
most of that challenge.
They did. We never see medical crews tend to her.
No, they just kind of the cast carries her away.
Yeah, and I was like, where's the doctor? No,
I think
I'm sure it's off camera.
Until someone's like passing out or something, they don't even bother.
Yeah, I guess.
Right? Because it's just like I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's we don't want to see it. Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Before we get to your protagonist, I did want to talk about that challenge because there is a cameraman in the shot, but wearing like full camo.
I missed it.
It's real quick. It's at the very start of the challenge. Go back and watch it. He says go, and then they start hauling their cart, and then they pan across, and cameraman in full camo, standing in the grass, is like, oh, don't look at me.
That's hilarious.
It's great. I love it. And then finally, your protagonist of the episode.
I mean, yeah, it's got to be Clarence. Not for good reasons, but he is the one who drives the action of the episode. His actions have the biggest impact, even if it doesn't end up with him going home. Yeah, so where's Diane now?
Diane is retired. Diane, just like in the show, retired a little earlier than expected. Was meant to, after her 55th birthday, was set to retire, and 1 month before her retiring date, she broke her foot and had to retire early. Oops.
That's like the cop getting shot on the shows, and it's like, I was 1 week from retirement.
Yeah.
I'm too old for this shit.
Okay.
Yeah. There's honestly not a whole lot about her.
It makes sense. A first boot on a season that I can't imagine is a lot of people's favorites. That makes sense.
Interesting comment about the Beangate is she, from her perspective, this is way past game, and this is only her perspective. I don't have anything from Clarence. She says he wanted it. I was laying in the dirt sleeping. He asked me if I knew how the can opener worked. I told him to put it in back and wait to the others for them to come back. He figured it out. He gave me 2 fingerfuls of beans and ate the rest and buried the can. And told me not to tell anyone.
Wow.
Wild.
That she makes.
I feel like
that
would have been a good stinger. Like the episode ends, they should have showed like the clip of that to the audience of like, like that's something that like would happen today, but wouldn't have happened back then, and that would have been great to see.
Or at least show him burying the can.
Yeah.
That's as incriminating as it gets.
Oh yeah, because they asked him like, "Where's this can?" Then he's like, "Oh, I was walking, I threw it," and it's like, "All right, dude,
you liar."
burying the can is kind of crazy. Like, that's kind of a crazy move to pull. Yeah, I did forget about that. I forget that he said, like, he carried it with him and then he threw it away.
Yeah.
Which is, again, very incriminating. Very incriminating. This seems like a dangerous segment. How often, or has it not happened yet, where you're like, what are they doing today? It's like, ooh, they are not here anymore. Because the show's old.
Yeah. We've only had one person die on us so far.
Oh my god.
Yeah, BB.
BB.
May he rest in peace.
Actually, he's right up here. For our audio listeners, which is everyone, you can't see this, but we have our BB shrine right behind me.
Well, he's in good company.
He is with
Yeah.
Yoshi.
Yeah.
As a bit, I printed him out
Great.
It's beautiful.
for this audio-only medium.
We're fucking ridiculous. Cool. Any final thoughts before we wrap this episode?
Thank you for being here, Christian.
Oh, thank
This
you
is
guys for
fun.
having me. I've been Survivor obsessed for the last few weeks. I'm very excited to break into I'm watching the current season, so I did a crazy thing. My friend told me, like, you should get back into Survivor. I was like, all right. And he told me, don't go all the way back because it's not as gamey and it's just not as fun. And he was like, start in the 30s. So I literally just... I watched season 34 first, which is a crazy thing to do because it's like all returning people.
Oh, wow.
So it was like I watched all these people who've already been on the show first, but it was such an incredible season, and it's the game changer season. I'm not going to say anything that happens in it, but then after I watched it, I was like, wow, that was so good. So then I watched the current one so that I could be caught up with what's currently happening, and then I went to 20, and I've been making my way up, and I finally passed 34. I'm on 38 right now, so I've only got a few left. I might fill in the gaps. I haven't decided if I want to go back and watch 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I might also just watch like a YouTube like recap of what happened on that season with those people. Haven't decided, just because these older seasons, they're much just meaner. They're just much, you know.
You can listen to our podcast when we get there.
It is gonna feel like a halfway point. You throw in things like hidden immunity idols or more twists.
Yeah, better rewards.
Yeah, it's halfway
Making
between
the games better.
They get past they're just trying to not die, and they get more into gameplay, but it's still not quite there.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I might just rewatch a bunch of this season just to like skim through it because I'm just curious now. It is starkly different from the modern show. So, yeah, 100%. Thank you guys for having me. This was a blast.
My pleasure. Anything that you would like to promote, we'll go. Christian, talk about you. Talk about the things that you're doing.
I mean, the only thing I'd really promote would be the Unranked podcast right now. It's just, you could search for Unranked on whatever podcast platform you want. It'll be there. We talk about video games and a bunch of other nonsense and bullshit. My buddy Tom, he works at GameSpot. He's one of the hosts as well. Dan is one of the hosts who's on a previous episode. So we'll talk about current Survivor on there from time to time. And we do like a game every episode. But yeah, that's the only thing. Otherwise, right now, I'm basically just... Honestly, like I've been looking like at the producers and like the production teams, and I've been like reaching out to people because I'm like trying to figure out how I go work on this show now because I really want to work on this show. So if anyone is listening and you are involved in Survivor production, let me know.
Please get my man a job.
And while I still have it, I guess you could find me at Christian_Humes on Twitter, I guess, or whatever other social media things, while that platform still exists.
Jared, anything you want to promote today?
I would like to promote ignoring your conservative uncle at Thanksgiving.
This seems like a very specific scenario.
No, I feel like everyone's got that uncle.
Okay.
And like they're gonna be loud at Thanksgiving, but like it's just not worth it. Like you don't need to argue with them. Just like let them rant and rave.
Today.
Yeah.
One day.
Or just start your own Thanksgiving traditions with people that you want to be around is another thing. If that's an option for you.
It's also an option.
cut those people out of your lives has been generally what my MO has been at this point. It's don't just ignore your crazy uncle. Don't see them anymore has been the move I have made personally. Always options out there for you.
COVID has really pushed the Friendsgiving that I've I've enjoyed. I mean,
Oh,
being far away
Friendsgiving's
from
great.
family, it is.
Yeah.
Just you can. It's way less pressure.
Yeah.
You don't have to go everywhere.
You can eat at a normal time. You don't have to have
Yeah.
like some super early dinner. Like I don't know why people eat so fucking. I don't know if maybe this is a regional thing, but for me, Thanksgiving and everyone I know, Thanksgiving dinners are always so freaking early in the day. They're not at like a dinner time, and I've never understood it. It seems bizarre to me every time since I've done Friendsgivings for like the last decade, because it's like I if I'm gonna travel back east because my family and everyone is like from New York, I'm gonna go for like Christmas, end of year holidays. I'm not gonna go for Thanksgiving as well. It's just too much to be traveling like twice, 4 weeks apart at the end of the year. So I've been doing Friendsgiving for like a decade. I think it's way better. It's like, I'll have dinner at like 6, not like 3 or 4 at the latest. Like, I don't know. Old people need to eat early because they get up early and they go to bed early. I'm not here for that.
I am an old person in just that. I just go to bed and wake up early. But also, Thanksgiving, it's just an excuse to eat lots of food, get drunk, and watch football.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like your own personal Survivor reward.
Yeah. Except I'm not going to feel miserable afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, as miserable. I also want to promote the Unranked podcast. If you haven't given them a chance yet, go listen to them. I've been listening to them for years. They're coming up on 350 episodes. I tapped in around 100, so just thinking how
That's so
long
crazy.
That's been.
It's I was a young man when that show started.
Yeah, I was driving back from college. It was great. It was a good time.
I was still working in retail, hoping to work in TV, and now I work in TV. So it's like, it's been a very, like Survivor, the farther you go back, the more things change.
It's all about the growth and the future and where we are now, not where Survivor was at the time.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
that's true.
Perfect.
Well.
Then that'll do it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. This is the Survivor Turning Back Time podcast. For my co-host Jared and our special guest Christian Humes. I don't know how we're going to wrap this around. Jared, you want to try this?
Well, you didn't say your name yet.
Oh, I'm Steven.
And for my host, Christian Humes, and my special guest, Steven, this is Jared.
That confuses the hell out of me. Christian, you want to give this a try?
Sure. And for my host, Jared, this is Christian Humes. I'm not sure exactly what this is.
Nailed it.
Brilliant.
Bye-bye!